customary to start with a joke when you give a talk.
Yeah.
So my joke today is last month I was speaking in Nepal and they asked me to speak to an opposition party. So I said, okay lah, what's the problem, right? Because in September 2022, I came to the Royal Selangor Club to speak at the fundraiser for the opposition coalition. 2 months later, it's that Malaysia, they began a government. And I see that even today, the coalition government is still in place. But after today's election in one state, I think things might change. So the funny thing is, I said, okay lah. You say, oh, you come to Kathmandu, can you come and speak to the opposition? I say, sure. So, 2 gentlemen brought me for a very sumptuous lunch before the talk. So I said, oh, you are members of the party? He said, no. I'm the legal advisor, he's the economic advisor. I said, hey, what kind of political party is this? So I went, the party building is a huge 6-story building. And on a weekday, in the afternoon, so many people inside. So when I went to the hall to speak, first time in my life, I had 10 media cameras looking at me, 7 media mics right in front of me. Then subsequently I realized this is the second largest political party in the world, the Nepali Congress Party, 800,000 members. Right?
Where was this?
Kathmandu. So the best part is that I told them this story about what happened in Malaysia. So my friend said, "Ayah, you should come to talk to us earlier. We were the government, we just got overthrown." The new government just took office in April, and the new government is very young. The Prime Minister is only 24 years old. And here's the best part, the Prime Minister doesn't speak. He says, I don't speak, I only do. Okay? First in the history of the world, I don't know, but I found that very interesting, very funny. Today, I'm going to talk about whether the Singapore economic and anti-corruption model can be adapted to Malaysia. You know, Singapore is the most top rankings in the world. Just yesterday, the new ranking came out. Singapore #1 in the world for wealth migration. What is wealth migration? That means all the rich people in the world, this is the #1 place that they go to put their money. Okay? Most competitive economy in the world. #1 for global talent competitiveness. #1 for GDP per capita, purchasing power parity. That means Singapore is the richest country in the world on a per person basis. But the most important of all this ranking is the 5th one, innovation. Singapore is ranked #1 for innovation. I was speaking in Sri Lanka in November last year at the Harvard conference. To my surprise, the keynote speaker said, oh, you know Singapore, when it became independent in 1965, it was modeled after Ceylon. I also didn't know, According to the history books, Singapore was modeled under Philippines and Jamaica. So I went to pick up. It's true. I found 2 very reliable sources, all the old guards saying that our founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew went to Ceylon before Singapore became independent and said, he's very impressed with the peace and security of Ceylon and he wants Singapore to emulate Ceylon. And where is Ceylon today? This is one country, not your country, but there are some similarities. Let me explain. Fragile economic recovery, of course this is not your country, right? But if you look at your history, you've gone through a lot of ups and downs, okay? And if you look at Indonesia today, economic meltdown. High debt, I think you have this issue, right? Poverty, every country has poverty. you don't have this IMF problem, but the corruption, right? When I read the news that your anti-corruption commission chief was the most corrupt at the resign. I was speaking in Kazakhstan last week at a human rights conference when I talk about this, they all laugh. This is the best example of corruption in the world, where the chief of the anti-corruption is the most corrupt and had to resign. So you are a champion in the world, okay? In this respect. Brain drain. Hey, a lot of your best brains have or are leading the country. And many of them come to where I come from. Okay? So yours is brain drain. In a way, we are brain stew. Okay? So there are similarities. Many of the countries have similar problems. The Singapore SMEs comprise 99% of the businesses in Singapore.
SMEs.
Yeah. They employ 70% of the workforce and they contribute to 50% of the GDP. So there are many factors why Singapore has been described as the economic miracle in modern times. But this one is quite unique. I've spoken in more than 40 countries. I've never seen a country that has such a powerful SME influence of the country. So this is where Singapore excels, right? And you know about innovation, AI going forward, the SMEs will play a very huge role. Singapore is ranked third least corrupt in the world. You are ranked 54th out of 80 countries. See, the problem with corruption is it impedes investor confidence, right? When an investor want to think, oh, should I come to this country to invest, to do business, the first thing you ask is, how corrupt is the country? So one of the reasons why Singapore is so successful, which I'll explain later, how we have an anti-corruption model to slowly eradicate corruption. What is the Singapore anti-corruption model? Can it be adapted to Malaysia? 3 points. Number one, very easy to get caught. When I was young, or even today, you can call a phone number and say, oh, I think this person is corrupt. Of course, if you maliciously, intentionally accuse someone falsely, you can get into trouble. The propaganda was tremendous. When I was a young boy, watch the television, oh, report corruption, report corruption. There was even the rumor of a son who reported the father for corruption. Okay. Point number two, the penalty must be very severe. Our first cabinet minister found with corruption in the 1980s. It was rumored that he was asked to hang himself. Anyway, he committed suicide. So the message was sent down, hey, very serious, okay? Even recently, a cabinet minister was sentenced to jail for 12 months for corruption. And what was the corruption?
Buying football tickets.
Football tickets, not very expensive, right? Theater tickets, not very expensive, right? Cheap $100 wine, not very right. The highest item of the corruption was he took a flight on his friend's plane to go to another country to watch Grand Prix. So you add up everything, less than $50,000. And yet, cabinet minister, 12 months sentence. So even today, I give you $100 or you take it from me, both of us go to jail 3 to 6 months. So we constantly remind people, our penalty is severe, report corruption. The third point is a bit more difficult and may take a longer time. Because in many countries, the civil servants cannot survive without corruption. The pay is too low. So what do? We talk to all the civil servants. What are your financial concerns and goals in life? Oh, number one, for sick hour, okay, free healthcare for civil servants. Number two, I'm worried about having a roof over my head. Okay, no problem. Low cost public housing, not just for civil servants, for entire population. Number three, pension. Okay, no problem. Free pension for all civil servants. Number 4, education for children. Okay, low cost education for everyone, not just civil servants. So at this stage, you listen to this, oh, it must have cost the government a lot of money, right, to give all these things. As it turned out, it did not cost the government a lot of money, because over time, most of the civil servants like myself, we were offered and converted to the ordinary healthcare and pension scheme of the ordinary citizens. You see, why did all the civil servants convert like me? In order to get the free healthcare and the free pension as a civil servant, you must work non-stop all the way to 55. You break, right? All gone. So at the end of the day, it did not cost the government a lot of money. In my opinion, the most important, most significant factor that contributed to the Singapore success story is, and before I tell you what is that I'm going to say, I'm going to give you an anecdotal example of the problem today. I will use the United Kingdom. In the UK, like many countries in the world, you want to win votes in the election, you promise more benefits. Then you win, you become the government, in order to provide more benefits, you will increase taxes. Don't work, right? So what you try to do, you try to reduce some benefits, even worse. So the outcome is always the same. Higher budget deficits, higher external public debt. There is no end. Now in the Singapore model, which I will explain a little later, we have budget surpluses like in 4 out of every 5 years. Last year the budget surplus was $15.1 billion. That's 46 billion ringgit budget surplus in 1 year. Last year, Singapore is one of the lowest external public debt in the world. So, some people will say, hey, what's the secret? How you managed to do this? So now I will tell you what I was going to say, the most important aspect that contributes to the Singapore model. You see, Singapore's fiscal policy model, especially in the provision of public goods and services, is conceptually, from a cash flow perspective, very similar to the Islamic finance concept of the sharing economy. What is sharing economy? Sharing of the stakeholders for the benefits and the risks. So Singapore applies this very well for public goods and services. So that at the end of the day, since the people are sharing the burden, you see, in the developed countries, France, UK, the burden of providing public services rests entirely on the state. In the Singapore model, the people and the state share. So the state doesn't have to, as great a burden, arguably, as the other countries. They don't have to spend a lot of money. Let me give you some examples. Every country or city has a public housing problem. Why? Every public flat they build, they lose money. Now in the Singapore model, from a cash flow perspective, the state does not lose money on every flat they build. How does it work? If you can afford to and you want to, you can buy a bigger public flat in a more popular area, you pay more. And the excess cash flows then can be used to enable the very poor, the low income, to have public housing at work at very low cost. I'll give you an example. The cheapest public flat today, you can buy a small 2-room flexi flat in a not very popular area. The cheapest is probably about $110,000. If I buy, because my household income is quite high, I pay $110,000. But if your household income is below $1,500 a month, the maximum subsidy to help this poor family to buy is $120,000. So for low income family, they can actually get a $110,000 flat by paying as little as $10,000. And that's why Singapore won a UN Habitat Award, one of the best public housing system in the world. Why? More than 80% of the population lives in public housing. More than 90% of those who live in public housing actually own their public flats, which historically has been increasing at about 5% per annum. So not just a roof, it's an asset, it's a growing asset, it's an investment. Now for whatever reason, those who don't want to own a flat, you can rent a public flat in Singapore for as little as $26 a month, 80 ringgit a month. in the most expensive city in the world. Just 4 days ago, the new ranking came out. Singapore is still the most expensive city in the world, and yet you can rent a public flat for as little as 26 Singapore dollars or 80 ringgit. Next example, pensions. Countries like France, UK, they are on what we call the defined benefit pension system. Singapore is on the defined contribution benefit. What's the difference? Defined benefit means you promise a person a certain pension when they retire, then you adjust for inflation as you go along. So that model is not sustainable. Why? You need enough young people to contribute in order to enable the old people to get their money. Now, in the Singapore model, being a defined contribute model, doesn't work like this. Every citizen and permanent resident has his own pension account. We contribute a percentage of our salary, it's our own money, right? So the state don't have to spend a lot of money, it's our own money. In fact, in most years, what the state pays the pension members, a fixed guaranteed no risk interest, in most years is a bit less than what they get when they invest all the pension money. And so we estimate now, every year, the difference between what the state derives on the average and what they pay the citizens, this guaranteed no risk fixed rate, the difference is about 10 billion a year. And if you go back the last few decades, these have compounded to a few hundred billion. So as you see, why is it that Singapore is charging ahead compared to so people? We have tons of money. Here again, sharing economy. The people and the state share not just for public housing, for pensions. Healthcare. If I go to a public hospital in Singapore, I can choose 1 room to myself, 2 to a room, 4 to a room, 6 to a room. For those who want to and can afford to, they choose 1 or 2 to a room or 4 to a room. So the higher charges they pay is used to subsidize those at the bottom, so that if you are poor, you are lower income, you pass the means test, you practically have free healthcare. We are very proud to say that we have almost quality universal healthcare, and no, however poor you are, you can worry that you fall sick, you won't be able to get better, because if you pass all the means tests, you low income, as good as free. So you can see from these 3 examples that I've cited for you: public housing, pensions, healthcare, sharing economy. The people at the state share, so the state does not have to spend a lot of money. And since they don't have to spend a lot of money, they have tons of money to do other things such as infrastructure, economic and social development, compete internationally, and so on. Like all good things, there is a not so good. The price of being the economic miracle. Most fatigued, tired nation in the world. Most depressed nation in Asia. Lowest birth rate on record. 3rd lowest birth rate in the world. 73% of employees are unhappy and 62% feel burnt out. 2 in 5 report waking up tired every day. That's the price of economic development. So, for countries that try to adapt the Singapore model, I always say, try to balance, don't push too much on economic development, because you don't want to end up with such ridiculously poor rankings.
I think we're in the wrong country.
It's very good you're laughing now, because you will laugh even more when I tell you this one.
Oh.
One of our rankings, a very interesting one, is we're the 2nd lowest ranking in the world for libido. Now, this is a very good ranking, a very bad ranking. A very good ranking, How do you measure libido?
How many times the man cheat on you?
You ask me. How often you do, how you rate your performance, how your partner rate you, blah, 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 right? And because Singaporeans are very honest, they tell the truth, that's why they're ranked so low. But you see, if you go to a country to do business, to invest, or even to study, to work, you want people to be very honest, right? So this is a very good ranking and not a bad one. Well, so far I've talked about the past and the current. The key challenge now is the future, right? So many new things are happening, unprecedented, unexpected changes going on all over the world. What is the future going to look like? This is Singapore's focus today, okay? But before that, the 744 square kilometer island, 6.1 million population, small island, very few people, and yet look at our stock of Singapore's direct investment abroad, just by the corporate sector, $1.7 trillion. We have estimated more than $2 trillion in the reserve, which is the highest reserve per capita in the world. We are spending like crazy, R&D spending, all kinds of schemes to promote innovation, funding, and so on. But if you go back to history, you see how the innovation start. Suggestion box, put $5. I had a friend's son, after graduation, submitted 50 suggestions in the first year at work. So he got $250. But the suggestions were so good, his pay increased from 7,000 to 20,000 after 1 year. Wow. He was given a very important post by the CEO. Wow. So you see the focus today and is all about innovation, because that is the challenge, especially with the advent of AI. We launched a cut waste panel in 2003. First year alone, got more than 500 suggestions. Cut waste. What is the state doing that can be cut? Cannot be spending too much money. So in the budget that Singapore announced in February this year, $37 billion innovation fund. You can claim tax allowance up to 4 times if you are doing innovation. We pay 50% of your cost if you are a local SME. So many schemes, incentives, just to encourage people to keep on innovating, This slide don't look right? It's slanted, right?
Yeah.
That's the reason for this. Because if you look at Singapore's history, arguably the key to our success is we keep trying to do things differently, and if possible do things that nobody's ever done. And that's why the slide is not straight. I give you some examples. 1 year we had a recession. So we asked, especially the foreign companies, how can we help you? Oh, your pension contribution cost very high. No? Okay. We reduced our pension contribution rate from 50 to 30% to help the companies. No country has been able to do that or has ever done that. I think in another country, you try to reduce the pension rate by 1%, you have riot, the government will out of business the next year. Okay. Another year, recession, we asked, how will we help you? Oh, the recession, we have no business. So can we send all the employees on leave, then we have to pay them? Then later when we have business, we ask them come back to work. But if we don't really have the money, can we ask them to work for free or work for a part amount? Or later when we have money, then we sure can, no problem. So you see, Singapore always bend backwards to show people that we are so friendly to business. And that's why you can see #1 for business competitiveness and so on and so forth. We have a skill development fund that is to encourage people to learn. You can learn anything. You learn cooking, you learn AI, whatever. We started with $500 per citizen. Now it's $4,000 per citizen. I have to show you a personal example of innovation. 1 year I was speaking at the Organization of American States OAS General Assembly Business Roundtable. It was either in Venezuela or in Fort Lauderdale in the USA. Halfway during my presentation, I crumpled my paper and I threw it at the audience. Oh, they thought it was a terrorist attack, no? And I said, you know why I did that? I want to emphasize to you, Singapore has survived despite when we became independent in 1965, no resources, no nothing, right? We made it because we tried very hard to be different. That's why I truly said. latest example of innovation, Taylor Swift concert. How can Taylor Swift concert be something that is different or never done before? You know, in 2024, we had a Taylor Swift concert in Singapore. What was never done before is we struck a deal with Taylor Swift. She can only perform in Singapore and nowhere else in Southeast Asia.
Oh yeah.
All the countries, all the young people were up in arms. But the outcome is, we estimate $370 million was spent. 300,000 people came. They don't come alone. They come with their parents, with their friends, contribute to, and so on. Okay, so innovation is not like, oh, it must be, you know, tech or AI or some patent or event. No. It's sometimes simple common sense that you do things that nobody.
But Uncle, how much the PAP government paid Taylor Swift to do that?
Well, nobody knows. Nobody knows. You see, why should you share with people your secret? You just need to tell people that I'm the most successful. Right? I'm giving you some tips on how it can be done. But the latest secret, I don't tell you lah. All the past one, I already told you, right? Okay, another is a very good example. We have Japanese tourists who was cheated in Singapore by a merchant. Singapore Airlines, for many years the best airline in the world, flew the tourists back on business class to testify in court.
Wow.
It's the best advertisement ever, right? Yeah. So you see, Singapore, keep doing the thing nobody do. Better still, do things that nobody has done. Okay? So, what is the magic formula today? Very easy, right? Every month or other month, we have these big tech events, no? AI, tech, innovation, 20,000 people come, the exhibitors come, universities come, students come, NGOs come, entrepreneurs come, they network, and things happen. Whether it happen in Singapore, in another country, in collaboration, now, later, doesn't matter. Doesn't cost the state any money, right? How many countries can do this? Very hard. And that's why if you want to adapt the Singapore model, you have to understand, okay? You cannot follow everything, no? This one you cannot follow, because if they are bringing in 20,000, you are a neighboring country, you can bring in 10,000, you're not doing anything different. You're not doing something that's never been done before. So, in conclusion, let me say this. Most countries that try to adapt the Singapore model, in my view, is trying to do it in the wrong way, because they focus on why Singapore became successful, how Singapore became successful, and is still successful today. In my view, what is even more important, you must focus on the mistakes Singapore made, the setbacks, the failures, the lessons that they learn, how they keep adapting, and even now, they are still adapting. I just published a book a few days ago, Can the Singapore Economic and Anti-Corruption Model be adapted to Malaysia? It's available at Amazon.com, US $5. I used to sell my books at $0, then the distributor not happy, so I put $1, still not happy, so now it's $5. So $5, I get $2.97 as my royalty. 133 pages.
E-book,
It's an e-book. E-book, yeah. The print book should be ready by tomorrow, I think. Right. So that is my humble contribution to you, my friends. And with that, I thank you and welcome any questions or comments. Questions, please. Thank you.
I have a few questions. So, as you know, one of the questions would be like the most important: can it be adapted to Malaysia, right? I think one of the key successes of Singapore's economic model and anti-corruption is due to the homogeneous society in some sense, because all of the differences was weeded out during the JBJ time, and all of the opposition, how Lee Kuan Yew sued everyone. I'm not saying anything, I'm just saying that what he did at the time has led to what it is today. It's a positive net outcome. See, you can't break, you can't have a omelette if you can't break eggs, right? So I think the question is more like, in Malaysia we have a non-homogeneous society. So how much effort do we need to put into making this model happen? Because this model presupposes a homogeneous in beliefs and homogeneous in, you know.
Very good question. Of course, when Singapore became independent,
Yeah.
we were very similar to you because we were part of you, right?
Right.
We were not homogeneous.
Right.
So what did we do that is different or never done before? Number one, we gave the minority Malay race, that was at that time maybe about 20% of the population, more privileges than the majority race. For example, all Malays had free education all the way to university. When I went to school, all my classmates who were Malays get to study all the university free. I have to pay because I'm from the majority race. So that is not just one of the things we did. We forced people to live together. In every public block of flats, cannot have more than 25% Indians, Malays or other races. We forced people to live together. In my national service, 2.5 years, in the barrack, 20 people. They purposely make sure that the Malay, the Indian, the Chinese, and others always live, pardon my language, we eat, bathe, shit, do everything together. It's all this forced, okay? And we have laws that say, if you say or do anything that cause grievance or disharmony to another race or religion, they charge you, go to jail. So, they charge you, go to jail.
Oh.
So, these are some of the examples of what we did to ensure that there is peace and security. Because if, you know, in Singapore, when I was young, we had the racial riots, we have curfew, we have bomb in the city, we have confrontation,
Yeah, the
you know, right? So, it's a slow process, we learn to adapt. So today, it's very simple. Every race in the celebration is encouraged to invite the other races and religion to come. So when I have Chinese New Year, all the people in my house are not Chinese, you know. They are Malays and Indian other race, because we keep encouraging, motivating, you know, telling people, hey, you must, you know. So if I hold an event and they see all from one race, somebody will call me, hey, something wrong with your, you know, you should be getting as many races as possible, right? So I hope that helped to answer your question.
Yeah.
Some of the things that perhaps, give me cite one example. You understand you have your UEC Chinese schools problem. Your Chinese school certificate is may not be as fully recognized in your country.
Yeah.
It's recognized in Singapore by National University and other countries. So if you I was speaking in Sri Lanka just last month. They had a 25-year civil war. So history has shown us that you must help the minority, you know, maybe even more than the majority, because that will solve all your problems. The same thing happened in Lebanon and many other countries.
Is that the same policy today? I mean, like, Malays still receive free education and stuff like that?
In 1984, the Malay community said we don't need the free one anymore. We have enough money to fund our own people.
Oh my
So
God.
since then, the Malay community has been funding free education in the sense like they give bursary and all that. But it's means tested. If you are rich Malay, you get no money or less money. But if you are poor Malay, you get all the way. Okay?
I see.
Yeah. Next question.
So right now the model is they still fund the poor citizens.
Okay.
But
Your question is how do you address poor people, right?
how to address poor people in Singapore?
In the last election, the ruling party in 60 years in power had about 90% of the seats in parliament, 67% of the votes, right? And I always like to say when I speak, any government or opposition that adapts the Singapore model well may stay in power forever. Because as long as you continually, consistently give economic and social development to the people, they will keep voting for you. So how does Singapore address poverty? If you are poor, you pass means testing, your healthcare is almost free. Your childcare is almost free. your children's education is almost free. And if you are so poor that your own pension account is so little, they actually give you money out of the state's money in addition to what little you get from your own pension account, right? Low income, they get subsidies to buy public housing up to $120,000. They get subsidy for healthcare up to 100% in a way. They get subsidy for education. They get subsidies for what they call the utilities, service and conservancy charges. More than 100,000 households get free groceries in Singapore every year. More than 50,000 people eat free food every year. And most of these are not provided by the state. It's provided with the support of the state to the NGOs and the voluntary welfare organizations, right? So the poor get so much help that they have no choice, jokingly, but to vote for the same party. Okay. Okay. Next question.
How did Singapore come to a point where they hold politicians accountable for corruption?
Okay. The first cabinet minister found with corruption, it was rumored that he was asked to hang himself. Anyway, he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Okay. Recently, cabinet minister for less than $50,000 corruption sentenced 12 months jail. We consistently remind people, no matter how high up you may be, hey, we have had 2 speakers of parliament resign. Not to mention ministers and MPs and so on.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe I should talk a bit about the Islamic principle of hadith. Hadith, the 3 major components are well-being for humanity, social justice, and no exploitation. So in a sense, even though Singapore is not an Islamic country, we try to apply these principles, maybe unknowingly, because unless you do this, corruption cannot, corruption doesn't disappear overnight. Last year, after 60 years, we have the lowest ever number of corruption cases charged in court last year, 68. So there's no such thing as no corruption. 68 was a record low, but we are 3rd lowest in the world. So we just have to keep at it. As I said earlier, we had a rumor that the son, reported the father for corruption. It's all propaganda, You push hard enough. Okay. In connection to your question, I will tell you the good news. In my view, corruption will go away much faster today. Why? Because of 2 things. One, AI. What has AI got to do with eradicating corruption? Last year, they had big floods in the Philippines. They discovered $2 billion disappeared for flood infrastructure.
Yes.
But AI very clever. They managed to find one of the corrupt person in some remote place in the world. And the AI can also list for you in his entire life, what time, what did he do, how much was the corruption. Okay? So the AI is helping to eradicate corruption. The second one, perhaps I think even more significant, is the social sanction. In some countries, if you are a very corrupt person, you can't even go to a restaurant to eat. Because if the restaurant owner serve you, everybody will boycott the restaurant, they go out of business. Okay? One head of state famously said, live on TV, I can't even go to the hairdresser. So the social sanction, the cancel culture, the AI, in my view, will make corruption go away much faster than in the past. I hope that helps to
So it's
answer
an
your question.
internalized social awareness of corruption in some sense.
I tell you the worst case scenario.
Ah.
Okay. Worst case scenario, as I'm seeing in one country, is not just a corrupt person. His family, his friends, his colleagues are all attacked by everyone. It's not that you cannot go to a restaurant to eat, no. Your spouse, your children also cannot go eat. It's unfair, it's very cruel, but that's the world today. Social sanction, cancel culture. I will not mention the country's name. There's one country today you will notice, hey, why are all the foreign companies running away? Why are all the foreigners running away? Why is nobody going to the country? Why is the country dying? Everything economically, debt, unemployment.
Yeah, next door neighbor.
Nobody expected this because the global world is so globalized. The power of the global citizen is very powerful, right? If just 20% of the global population said, I don't like this authoritarian dictatorial government, I boycott you, you are finished. So I hopeful that authoritarian regimes will be less, dictatorial regimes will be less, because it simply does not pay to be corrupt or dictatorial, right? What's the point of having a lot of money when you cannot even go to eat? You cannot travel, you cannot use a credit card, you cannot, Okay, I hope that helps to answer your question.
Yeah, because I think where we are trying to like, this being very enlightening, sir. Very enlightening. I've never had so much of this kind of information in my life. I think where we are thinking right now is like, how do we get from point A to point B? Yeah.
Well, you can see that people are doing it, and people have done it. I always say, you don't have to follow the model 100%. Or you try, you adapt. If it doesn't work, you change, you adapt. See, a lot of people ask me, because you're a small country, easier to do what you do, right? The answer is no. The bigger the country, the easier. I tell you why. If you're a very big country, you just need to try in one small city or state. If it doesn't work, what's the problem? In a small country, you try, don't work, the government might fall,
Yeah.
So it's much easier for a small country to try a small place, and you just keep adapting, keep changing. Okay. Any more questions? Anyone? Yes,
How about
Jack?
the royalty issue in Malaysia? At the end of the day, with sultans and kings, they can veto quite a lot of things if they like to. So while we lay out all this manifesto, and suddenly they will say, no, they pull the royal card. So to speak.
I was speaking in Nepal, okay, last month. The royalty does not exist anymore. Okay, in many countries today, you find that either the royalty does not exist, or they still exist, but they don't do bad things anymore. Why? Because at the end of the day, royalty also realize that, hey, have AI, have social sanction. If I do things that the people don't like, after I go out, people will, take the camera out, put video and start saying bad things about me. Okay? So it's not just ordinary people. In my view, whether you're royalty, you are dictator, right? You can see the times are changing. Okay? If you do bad things, your life will be very miserable. Right? Human nature, right? Who wants to live a life of misery, right? Just for the sake of absolute power and fortune. I think slowly all this, how many bad royalty do you find in the world today? Hardly any exists. I mean, they still have the power, but they don't use it. Can you blame them? Of course, if I were the royalty, I would do it. Right? It's stupid, right? I do something bad, then my children cannot go to school. Because when they go to school, all the friends will throw it at them. Times are changing, so I'm very hopeful. Don't worry, right? Things are and very quickly getting much, much better. All these old problems are slowly going away.
You mean for Malaysia?
Yes, of course.
I mean, like, I think what we are thinking about also is that over here there is a strong sort of like racial or cultural loyalty to the monarchy, and as a result, they tend to exempt the royalty is exempt from all of the social sanctions in our society now, because to go against them is like Thailand, Malaysia, Majesty, and all that. So.
If you look at history, most of the royalty, they still have the power, but they don't use it anymore. They exempt themselves, right? Because it does not pay, right, to use your exemption in a way.
Right.
Because it's bad news for you. It's bad for your family. It's bad for your family. Look, can you imagine what's the point of having a lot of power, a lot of money, but you can't go anywhere? Just imagine, you exercise one bad aspect of your power, The next day when you go out, everywhere you go, people take the phone and take you and say bad things about you and your family. You happy? No, I don't think so. Right? So slowly, I think all these are going away. I'm very, I mean, I wouldn't mention the particular country, but in many, I've spoken in more than 40 countries. I've seen many countries where they all have the problem that you are asking me today, but slowly these are all going away.
In fact, I would argue that in America, there are reversal. There's a new king being born right now. It's called the Emperor Trump.
Now, why is Trump so
He will be the
popular?
new king.
Why is Trump so popular? Because he dares to do things differently and do things never been done before, and everything he does, he has a very great propaganda. He said, "I'm doing it to make America great again and make Americans, better." Right? Look, he won in almost all the states. So this kind of
The Singapore model.
exemplifies what I'm saying. Okay,
And he
right?
just fired three out of the
Power used
election.
badly is going away. Power used well, as you said, the Trump example,
You can overturn the red card.
people are more than happy to support you. Okay. Any more questions?
No. I think
Okay. Thank you very much.